Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5-Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello, Rush Nation, and welcome to the 5-Yard Dynasty podcast. I am your host, as usual, Liam, or the FSA Tweets on Twitter. And as usual, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Rich, at Dynasty Island on Twitter. So let's throw it over to you, Rich. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very good. I think that's the first time you've ever called me lovely. So, obviously starting off the show as you mean to go on, Liam.
Feeling a bit generous today. For those of you in the US or the UK, we've just had a long weekend. We've had 4 days because 2 days were a bank holiday. I know you don't get them, but that's the price you pay for leaving the British Empire, I suppose. Coming out with fire right
wow.
now. And so, Rich, did you do anything special for the Platty Jubes, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee?
I had a fairly mental 4 days, to be honest. I drove 150 miles to go to a farm on Thursday. I had a very formal traditional English dinner on the Friday. I went to Jurassic Live on the Saturday with my kids, and then we had a very British street party on the Sunday. So,
how old are your kids?
1 and 4.
Oh, okay. Very young.
Yeah. So they.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
No way.
Yeah. Everybody always says this.
Let me trade to look your age when I'm 32. Let me tell you. I think most people watching this would think I'm older than you. But I'm not.
It didn't help when I was 18, 19 getting asked for ID and refused service. So
I thought you were my age at least, if not younger.
I'm sneaky old.
For those of you wondering who that mysterious voice is in the background, that is Tyler at Tyler FF Creator on Twitter. He writes for DLF. He has his own YouTube channel. And host of the Ask DLF. I believe it's on Twitter, on YouTube, and as a podcast. So go check it out, guys. But Tyler, how are you doing? The veil has been released.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm doing well. It's apparently today is news day. There's actually news today.
News is a loose term.
Literally, okay, so the Kyron Williams broken foot news dropped, right? So I recorded a short YouTube video on that, being like, oh, Darrell Henderson, great. Yeah, no, he's gonna be great. And then I drop it, and then like 10 minutes later, Darrell Henderson dealing with a soft tissue injury, and I'm like, well, he stayed healthy for the 10 minutes it took to record the video, so that was good. But that's been my content for today.
So the big question, crazy. Tyler. So the big question: does this mean it's now Jake Funk season?
No, it doesn't. I was in on that trap last year.
I thoroughly enjoyed the 2 weeks of Jake Funk season that we had to endure last year.
Yeah, no, I definitely guilty as charged. I was definitely too in on Jake Funk. I apologize to all the people I told to use all of their fab, or not all of it, but like a significant amount of fab on Jake Funk. I'm very sorry.
That's not a great way to start.
Please accept my apology.
It's not a great way to start the show. Is already apologizing to everyone about it.
It's not the first time I've started a show like that.
Let's tweet that away. So today we are going to be talking about undervalued assets that we all think could be potential risers in the coming season. So today we're going to start off with a guest as usual. Tyler, let's throw it over to you. Who is your first player that you want to talk about today? And do you see a potential buying window now, or do you see it as a potential buying window in the future?
Can I dive in? Sorry to throw you off the show plan already, Liam. But Tyler, just before we go into talking about your player, can I just ask you, when you're looking at an undervalued asset, Have you viewing that as somebody that you think is undervalued versus ADP? Are you viewing that as someone that you think perhaps we're passing on the scrap heap a year too early? What do you view as kind of the dream undervalued asset as such?
I mean, it can be anything. I see some of your undervalued assets. You guys are going to deal with Angry Tyler 1, 2, 3 different times. Actually, 3 of my least favorite players are on this list. So all of whom I blasted yesterday. Actually, it took time out of my show yesterday to blast all 3 of those players individually. So not those, but no. What am I looking for? I mean, it depends. Usually, it's a player that I believe in, productive wise, typically on the younger side, who is not being valued based on their production. At least I think. I mean, that's kind of my players all kind of fit into that range. Or it's someone that I feel like is, lower down in the ADP rankings, who has a good opportunity to move way up. It's usually not going to be, for me, just given that I'm a big ageist, it's not usually going to be an older player that I feel like we're getting out of too early. Occasionally there ends up being someone like that. Just looking at the ADP, when I look to pick my players, there really just wasn't anyone on the older side that I was higher on. So typically it's not usually that. It's almost always someone on the younger side, or often a lot of rookies I'm higher on than consensus as well, because I'm more willing to take the gamble on something I haven't seen, I think, than most. So yeah, typically it ends up being in that range. I mean, just looking at the ADP, most of the players I'm higher on, a lot of whom I didn't pick, are actually rookies.
Okay.
I mean,
so who's your third guy?
This is going to be an interesting episode, Rich, because you're massively age doesn't matter, and to have an ageist on the show means that there's going to be some disagreements here. I might be, and we did a show together recently, and I might be the biggest ageist that I know. Like, I've never really recorded or talked to anyone who's a bigger ageist than me. I mean, I've even noticed some of my podcast co-hosts and people I've worked with have become bigger ageists because they've worked with me. So but yeah, speaking of age, the first player I put on the sheet was DJ Moore, who I love, but people don't like, and I don't know why. I do feel like he's more tribal, though. I do feel like it's like a 50-50 split, really, on DJ Moore. Generally, and this is not, I don't know what you guys think about Moore. Generally, what I found is that the most dynasty analysts like DJ Moore. They have DJ Moore ranked. I don't know if they have them ranked where I have him, which is dynasty wide receiver 10, which is high. But most of them are higher. I think you put it on the show sheet. ADP wide receiver 14. That's actually not bad. I forget what his DLF ADP was. Maybe it was 14.
That's all May DLF ADP.
May DLF. Yeah, no, it's more his overall. So in 1QB, I believe he was 28th overall, and I have him 18th. So at that range of the draft, 10 spots is a lot. I mean, I would say in 1QB startup draft, I'd be taking him in the mid-second. Whereas, ADP has him as a early to mid third, which at that point in the draft is a huge difference. So it's actually, I guess, more that I have a bunch of running backs behind him than anything else. But, if we look at DJ Moore, I mean, he's been incredibly productive. I mean, we all know that stat is out there. The one where he, is the only receiver to have a certain number of yards. I mean, I know he's had 1150 or more receiving yards each of the last 3 years. I know that last year he actually surprisingly had 163 targets. You probably wouldn't know that if you asked your average dynasty person, or any person, how many targets did DJ Moore have? They probably wouldn't think it was that high of a number. And yeah, I mean, he just turned 25 in April, and I know he didn't get a quarterback upgrade, but I just don't see why people are out on a 25-year-old receiver who's only ever been productive and hasn't scored a lot of touchdowns, because we know touchdowns are the least sticky stats and least sticky, especially for a receiver, and yards, targets, and receptions are more sticky. So I just, I think people are underestimating DJ Moore. You don't need to be top 3, top 5 to have dynasty value. even if he gives you 3 or 4 more seasons at his, current production level, then he'll be 28. Then you can sell him like I would, and you got the production, and you can get out 3 or 4 years later.
I think I love DJ Moore, and I agree with everything you said. I think for me, DJ Moore is what people want Terry McLaurin to be. DJ Moore is a productive player that's had poor quarterback play, but is still at a decent age level. We're not talking about Terry McLaurin that's sneaking up in age before he's even hit his second contract. And I think that because of that, DJ Moore is a fantastic undervalued asset. As you said, I mean, wide receiver 14, he's my wide receiver 13. I think the only concern is that quarterback situation. I think that we're probably going to see a new head coach. We're probably going to see a new offensive coordinator next year, which, is always a little bit nervy. I think that's probably the thing that's stopping him sneaking into my top 12, if I can be honest. But, under contract for at least 3 more years.
He does have the contract. That's true.
He's not going anywhere. And I like this, the surrounding kind of offensive talent. It's just a case of they need to go out and find an offensive line, a quarterback, and probably a new head coach.
I think the thing with DJ Moore that puts the Dynasty community off him is the fact that he's only scored 4 touchdowns in each of the last 3 seasons. I know you say that it's not a sticky stat, Tyler, and I tend to agree. But he just doesn't seem to get that red zone work like you want from a guy that you're taking around. If you're taking him around wide receiver 13, then you kind of want those red zone looks now. Or red zone production, shall I say, because I don't have the stats on red zone looks. But the other thing that I think people are slightly worried about is Christian McCaffrey coming back and the fact that they haven't had an upgrade at quarterback, as you said. I have him as my wide receiver 16, in my Dynasty rankings. And that's nothing down to him. He's always been a wide receiver 2 in Dynasty, a top 24 wide receiver, apart from his rookie year. But the big thing is, I think a lot of people are looking at his targets and saying they're going to come down with the potential healthiness of Christian McCaffrey. I know we said this the same time last season. We have no idea whether Christian McCaffrey is going to stay healthy, but if he does, he's probably going to be eating into a little bit of that target share. And people are scared about that touchdown potential because he's not scored that many in terms of each season. Now, I'm not saying that I don't like the player, because I do, and I feel like I'm bashing on a player that I'm actually pretty high on. The only reason I've got him at wide receiver 16 is because I've got Godwin at 15, and they are back to back. I can't split them. They're more like a 15A and 15B, and I'm worried about Godwin because of that ACL tear. But apart from that, it's just one or the other for me. And so you could say he's wide receiver 15, but I'm throwing out as a devil's advocate here why people might be looking at DJ Moore and thinking he's not as much of a value as people may think.
I wish Godwin didn't tear his ACL. The day before Godwin tore his ACL, he was Dynasty wide receiver 6 in my rankings. So I wish that had not happened. I still have him pretty high. I have him quite a bit lower though, because who knows? And I actually have Godwin at 15, so actually not lower, but lower than Moore, because Moore did not tear his ACL. But yeah, actually, so speaking of Christian McCaffrey, interestingly, DJ Moore's most productive season was Christian McCaffrey season. Actually, 2019, that was the best one. That was the best season. That was the most receptions per game. Close to 2020 in yards, but given the extra receptions per game, 2019 was significantly DJ Moore's most productive year. So, I don't know if we would, I'm not sure how much of a deal that is really, to be honest.
I think people are just looking at the target difference. That's all. That between the 2 seasons, the target difference was about 30. Just the completion rate went down, but we're trying to split hairs between his 2 seasons here. I don't think it's
no, for sure. I just people should know that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's that was his best year.
So, Rich, who is your first player that you want to talk about, and the one that you always jump to, and the one that I always jump to because we both want to talk about him, and you just set up the show sheet before I could.
So I think I'll be honest. I was turning off this guy. This is a guy that I've enjoyed scooping up at value over the last kind of 3 or 4 years, but I was turning off him this off season. And then last week I sat down and put together my redraft projections and my redraft rankings, and I couldn't quite believe how high I had him. So I kind of had to redo it and kind of adjust things. And I was like, no. So I'm talking about Brandon Cooks. He's my wide receiver 17 in redraft this year, yet he's going as the wide receiver 37 in ADP according to DLF. And I just think that, look, I'm not buying Brandon Cooks with a view of selling him in the future. I'm not buying him for future potential. I'm not looking at him as a depreciating asset. I'm looking at him as a guy that I think can give me, at a minimum, wide receiver 2 production 1 year, and if not more than 1 year. And current price, we're talking mid to late seconds. Okay, so again, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Mid to late second, you're talking around about 15% chance that a wide receiver taking in that range has a wide receiver 2 season. I'm quite comfortable saying that Brandon Cooks has got a better than 15% chance of having one wide receiver 2 season. So for me, he's a screaming value. I think he was so young coming into the NFL. I think people forget how old he isn't, if that's terrible English. But
September 93, I believe. Turned 29 in September.
He's sneaky young. Sneaky young, despite the fact that he's been around forever. And I think that he's probably going to get a 25% target share again in that offense. And I see no reason why he's not going to walk into wide receiver 2 season. So, if I'm a contender and I can send out my 23 seconds for Cooks to potentially tip me over the top, I'm happy to do that as my, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4.
So, Tyler, have you got anything you want to add to that, or considering the ageist views?
The big thing, no, Cooks is not one of this is not the player that we're gonna get destroyed or melt down on. No, I mean, I have Brandon Cooks in redraft at wide receiver 21, so not that far off from you. And then in Dynasty, I have him quite a bit lower. I have him at 44, wide receiver 44. So just not really interested. To be honest, I think the only thing we disagree on actually is really nothing about Brandon Cooks. It's just what is that we disagree on what a 29-year-old low end, to me, wide receiver 2 is worth. And I just think it's worth less. So I just have him lower. His ADP is actually way too high. His ADP is very high. It's like ADP makes no sense, but his trade value, if it's really a mid to late second, like you're saying, I'm fine paying that. But his ADP and his trade value don't align at all.
No, I completely agree. He's just to give you, he's my wide receiver 50 in terms of where I've got him ranked. So I'm much lower than, yeah.
So I actually have him higher than you.
Yeah, but this is purely a trade value piece, in that I think people are already cast into the scrap heap, and I think you can, that value's come from the DLF Trade Finder.
Yeah, he's just
that's what he's going for at the moment.
His ADP and his trade value have nothing to do with each other, so it was difficult to consider him for this exercise. But I would say, if you can get him for a mid to late second, I would do that. I don't have a problem with that. And just take the rest of his career. I mean, a mid to late second is what, this year? Tyrion Davis-Price, who I like, we're going to talk about later, but I'd rather have Brandon Cooks straight up, Brian Robinson, Jalen Tolbert. Those are some of the players that'll be a mid to late second. So Alec Pierce, those are fine, but Brandon, those are maybe will give you something if you're lucky.
As I said,
that Brandon Cooks will give you something.
Historical hit rate, you're talking between 10 and 15%.
Yeah, but I don't even care about that. It's more that just those specific players, like this year in that range, like those we name some of the players who are in the mid to late second. And I just whatever the historical hit rate is, it's not like I'm more confident than the historical hit rate in those players. I mean, I'm less confident, if anything, more than likely. Yeah. So yeah, I don't like those players in that range. So if that's what Brandon Cooks costs, then, I'm all in on it. Maybe if I have to pay a second from next year's draft, that I'm not as sure. I'm not as sure about that, because next year's draft, I think, is going to be a little bit better in the second round. I think we're going to have better prospects. I think next year, I'm just going to take that hit rate for the second round and just throw it in the garbage. Like, I don't think I'm going to be looking at that. I think I'm going to be looking at the specific players, and I'm really going to like it. So I don't know if I would give a 2023 second for Cooks. I guess maybe if I had to, but yeah. So I guess I'd never get him then.
So instead of rehashing exactly what Rich just said, because they're basically my views, and I'm sure the listeners are too fed up of listening to me agree with Rich, we're going to move on to the next player. And this is going to be my first player that I want to talk about, and that's Michael Gallup. Now, he had a disappointing last season. He was injured for a lot of it. He was the third, maybe the fourth option on this offense. But we've seen Amari Cooper traded away from this offense, and I believe that opens a big hole for him to produce well. Now, the reason I put him on this list isn't necessarily because of his ADP again, although I think wide receiver 48 is a little bit low. I still think that you can get him for a low now because of all the talk around him potentially starting on the PUP list. I think that either does happen and it won't be too much of a worry, or it doesn't happen at all and you can buy low right now for him. And when he's produced, he has done extremely well in this offense. Now, Tyler, where do you want to go with this? Because now that Cooks wasn't your guy, I'm going to be worried about this guy being him.
No, again, we're going to get to them. We're going to get to them.
I know which two it is. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, no, they're all coming up. Actually, the player I hate the most in all of football is on this list. So get ready, but it's not Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup is someone I feel like he's there. He's there in the ADP. His ADP, you said 48. I have him ranked at 49, wide receiver 49. He's there. The injury is a little bit concerning. I do like his opportunity. I liked him. But, he really didn't produce as much as I would have liked after CeeDee Lamb was drafted. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more after that, and it just didn't happen. So he's there. He's there. He has the contract. He's fine. If I have to take him, I'll take him. If I don't get him, I don't get him. I just, I have like no opinion on Michael Gallup other than that his consensus ADP seems about right. So I'm good with it.
I really like Gallup, but I think that the time to buy him isn't now. I think the time to buy him is in probably 6 weeks' time, once he's not training, once the PUP list is a real thing, and people are starting to get into, what we could talk about Dynasty redraft mode, where people are only thinking about that 2022 season, and people are looking at their roster and going, I've got Michael Gallup in my flex, but he's not going to help me, so I need to go and find someone else. And I think that's the time at which you're going to be able to get Michael Gallup at the biggest discount, because he's realistically very unlikely to be starting, training camp active. So I think that you'll probably get him at a better price in 6 weeks' time.
You can wait until week one. Like, once someone's setting week 1, week 2, they have to set their lineup and Michael Gallup is not available. They'll be like, well, he's not doing me any good. So I can trade for him, on an even cheaper price. So yeah, I would agree with waiting, but I would say you could wait even longer.
See, I'm completely the opposite on that. I don't think you can wait as long as you think, because if he starts coming back and starts looking semi-healthy, I know that the PUP is a real situation that could occur, but if he starts coming back and looking healthy, that window is not going to be open for very long.
I think that his price is baked into him coming back in camp and playing. I think if he comes back and is healthy in camp and practicing and good to go week 1, I don't think his price is going to jump significantly. I can't see where he'd who he'd jump ahead if he was active. So I think, even if he came back healthy, I can't see him jumping much higher than where he is now.
I suppose where I'm trying to get with this is, do you see his value dropping from here? Because if not, why not buy him now? Because I don't see his price dropping from now to the start of the season. I think it's always going to stay as what, a mid-third?
I think his price will drop. I think that once people get into that redraft mindset, I wouldn't be shocked if his price did drop.
Okay. This is surprising. We don't normally disagree, but Tyler, do you want to step us away from this and step us away from the wide receiver position and talk about your next player on the list?
Sure. So I put TJ Hawkinson on the list. I am a notorious TJ Hawkinson fan. I do like him. I like that, I think people are probably expecting, too much too early. I guess there's, there's Kyle Pitts that happened, but that is kind of once in a lifetime, someone to come in and be that productive as a rookie. That's not the norm. So TJ Hawkinson, I do think that we're going to see, this year is going to be the ascension. He just turned 25, turned 25 in July. So the 25 is usually when a dynasty tight end really starts to break out. Like Travis Kelce was old coming into the league. George Kittle, same thing. So, it seems like they broke out earlier, but they really didn't. They were actually older. So yeah, I would just say that he was drafted, 10th overall? 10th, 8th?
Was it 8th? I think it was 8th.
Was that even wrong? I don't remember. 10th. It was drafted top 10 either way. And yeah, I would just say that he will definitely break out. And I just, people I think are just tired of him. I don't know why. And maybe they're just frustrated. He missed some time last year. People always are a little bit frustrated with an, injury, but it's not like he's played 40 out of what? How many is that? 49 games. That's not bad for an NFL player. So I just think people are quitting on him too quickly. I hear a lot of people being like, well, he's never going to be good. I'm like, I guess if that's what you want to think, but I don't know. I mean, Darren Waller was in the wilderness for who knows how long doing nothing and then just appeared and was randomly, top 5 tight end. And TJ Hawkinson's actually started off his career on a good note. So I wouldn't just dismiss him. He's improved in receptions and yards per game every single year of his career. So he's slowly becoming more and more productive, even if it's maybe a little slower than people want.
What are you kind of willing to pay to acquire Hawkinson?
I never see Hawkinson moved. Really, I never see Hawkinson moved. This isn't trade for Hawkinson. This is draft Hawkinson. This is draft him in a startup. I cannot remember the last time I saw TJ Hawkinson traded. I don't remember it. I never see him moved. Never. He's never, ever traded. So I would say this is something where I would look to acquire him in. It's just because there aren't that many tight ends. So in order to trade TJ Hawkinson away, the person trading TJ Hawkinson probably has to have another really good tight end, which is, I suppose, possible. But there's 12 teams and 6 good tight ends. So he's rarely moved. But I would, I definitely draft him. I think his ADP is too low. And, I don't know. It's hard. It is hard to trade for him, though.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some recent trades on the Trade Finder, and maybe I need to go and buy some more TJ Hawkinson because some of these are outrageous. So recent trades, Tyler, let's throw these at you, see what you think.
Sure.
TJ Hawkinson in a normal, a start one tight end, no premium for Kenny Golladay, Evan Ingram, and a 23 second.
Okay, TJ Hawkinson easily. That one is a joke.
TJ Hawkinson and a 23 second for a 23 first.
I mean, unless there's a very heavy tight end premium, I'll take the first.
And then we've got this is maybe my favorite. TJ Hawkinson for Donta Foreman, a 23 third, 4th, and 5th.
Seriously?
Yes.
That is silly.
Yeah,
I'll take TJ Hawkinson there. So if those are the prices you can pay, maybe I'm wrong that he's not moved.
Yeah. I think it's just he just hits that slightly boring, slightly expensive tight end, doesn't he? Because there's the elite 4 that everybody kind of wants, and then he's kind of the next one off the conveyor belt, and it's just a bit meh when you get him, isn't it? So I think that's kind of my take on him. I like him. I don't hate him. I think he's ranked fairly. I get what you're saying, Tyler, completely, but he's just not exciting, is he?
I think
Well,
out of
not yet.
the tight ends that you've got, I think he's the most likely to jump up into that next tier. But as Rich said, you're getting into that boring range, and I'm not sure whether I'm willing to pay tight end, what is it, 5 in ADP?
Tight end 5, yeah.
You did mention that you thought that was about right, Tyler. Where do you have him ranked? Tight end 5?
5, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone's getting him in the top 4.
No, I don't think so. But I do think that the reality of the situation is that Travis Kelce is going to turn 33 in the middle of the season. No tight end has ever been top 5 after 32. Nobody. Zero. No, it does not happen. So it doesn't happen. I mean, that's when Tony Gonzalez, the wheels started to come off. That's when Greg Olsen, the wheels came off. Jason Witten, he was still decent after that, wasn't the same. The wheels come off at 32. So unless basically the Travis Kelce bet is that you're betting that Travis Kelce is the best tight end ever, which is possible. But, I think it's more likely that I think this is it. I think this is last year. There was decline. He was not as good as 2020. 2020 was his best year. 2021 was not nearly as good. And I think that 2022 is going to be another step down. And then 2023, I've been selling Travis Kelce forever. So, but I do think this is the year where the wheels start to, the decline becomes impossible to ignore this year. I think it'll be, most people will say that he's lost a step.
Yeah. Just quickly on the Tony Gonzalez thing, I don't know how accurate this is, but I'm looking at data that says he was the tight end 2 in 2013. Which
was that the first year in whenever he switched teams was the
that
year
was his final. That was his final year. So he'd been
32, but his production went way off the map though.
So he dropped. So I've got. I mean, Tony Gonzalez, tight end.
He only had 859 yards. If that was good for tight end 2, that's
So according to this,
crazy.
2009 he was tight end 6. 2010 he was tight end 6. 2011 he was tight end 4. 2012 he was tight end 2. 2013 he was tight end 2. So he'd been 37 then, and he was tight end 2.
That must have been in a different production era because he was not over. Because his production, if you look at his production after 32, the cliff went off. He never had 1,000 yards again. 2008, age 32 season was his last double-digit touchdown season. It was his last season over 150 targets. So I guess the thresholds were a lot lower back then. Because a season of 859 yards and 8 touchdowns, I don't think that's tight end 2 these days.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's a case of trying to think back to 2013, there wasn't exactly a plethora of.
No, that was in the tight end wilderness era where there was nobody. So I guess I could understand that. But, again, if he put up those statistics now, it wouldn't be, I don't know. It would not be top 3 anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's fast forward back to 2022, guys. We're talking 9 years ago now. Let's move on to Rich's
before my
next
time
player.
as well.
Right. So I feel like this is a hill. This is fast becoming my Aaron Rodgers of running backs, and I feel like I'm going to die on this hill. So again, look, I feel like everybody is too quick to slate this guy. I think that. Everybody is looking at the contract. Everybody is looking at the potential backfield mate that he's sharing the field with and saying he's done. But I think even as a 1-year buy, this guy is incredible value. And that's Aaron Jones. He's currently in ADP going as the running back 20. I think even as a 1-year buy, I think he's fantastic. I think he's my running back 8 for this year. I think he's probably the best receiving weapon on the Packers, and I'm really excited in scooping him up. If I can get him as a flex play, a running back 3, I'm happy to go out and do that. Go on then, Tyler. Slate me.
Well, he's all yours. I won't have him. In redraft, even in PPR, I have him at running back 16. So no, thank you. He is, Aaron Jones is I think is the most overrated redraft running back in the entire landscape. I don't get it. There are people saying, oh, receiving. He's so great. Not really. Not really. I mean, he's never had more than 70 targets in any season ever. The reason that Aaron Jones has been really good over the years is his rushing efficiency and the 1 year that he had a massive amount of rushing touchdowns. And then last year he got there with 6 receiving touchdowns on 52 receptions. That is not going to happen again. That's not going to happen again. So I would say, yeah, no, he could receive more receiving work with Devontae Adams gone, but it's not like he has, seasons of 100 targets. He doesn't have that. I did the comparison on my show yesterday, Aaron Jones versus Leonard Fournette in the receiving game. Leonard Fournette is way more productive as a receiver over his career than Aaron Jones. Leonard Fournette has a few seasons of over 70 targets. Aaron Jones doesn't have one. So Aaron Jones is the player. I don't get it. I think that there's a universe that by week 8, Aaron Jones is a backup. Aaron Jones is Nyheim Hines by that point. I think that universe exists. The universe exists where A.J. Dillon is just the starter. Aaron Jones is just Nyheim Hines, is not doing much other than seeing a few more carries and then some receptions here and there. I have zero interest in Aaron Jones. He's the player that I will not draft in any. If I have him at running back 16 in redraft, that means I won't have any Aaron Jones. In Dynasty, let's see. I have Aaron Jones, so we got to go way down. It's going to take a long time. I have him at 20. Actually, not that bad. 24, running back 24. But overall, I have him in 1 QB. Yeah, his ADP is 48. I have him at 73. So over 2 rounds lower. So yeah, he's a player I have zero interest in. I will let someone else draft him. I do not want him. Period.
I'm interested to know your take on AJ Dillon. Then, if you think Aaron Jones is that low, if your take on Aaron Jones is that low, you must think that AJ Dillon is mid to top end RB2. Or are you just projecting?
In what? In Dynasty, I do have AJ Dillon over a round above his ADP. So he's 78th overall. I have him at 64 in the 1 QB format, so over a round earlier. And then in terms of running backs, I only have AJ Dillon in Dynasty at running back 22. So I'm not that high on him, I guess. Overall, I am, though, I suppose. So, in redraft, though, I have AJ Dillon lower. I have AJ Dillon at 26. I think what we're going to find is that I am not in on the Packers at all.
That's what I'm trying to find out. Is
Aaron Rodgers
that work is disappearing to.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback 14. So in redraft. In Dynasty, even lower. I have him at 19.
That's outrageous.
Outrageous. Yes. I mean, it's so outrageous. He said he was going to retire. He said that I'm not sure that I'm going to play just yesterday, 2 days ago. He says, I don't know whether I'm going to play longer. Someone else can have Aaron Rodgers. I don't want him. 38, it's just that can be someone else's problem.
I can think of 120 million reasons why he's going to play for at least 2 more years.
Doesn't need the money, though. He doesn't need the money. He
doesn't need it. I don't care how much money you've got. Let's be honest. Even Steve Ballmer's not walking away from 120 million.
You would think that, but even if he doesn't, there's no guarantee that he's going to continue to be Aaron Rodgers as he ages. Really, only Tom Brady has actually done that. Continued to be stellar beyond 38. Nobody else has really ever. So, not at this level. So I'll bet against him. But either way, I still think Aaron Jones, if you look at Aaron Jones 2021 versus 2020, I mean, he was not the carries per game down, yards per game down, yards per carry down. I mean, rushing touchdowns were down. AJ Dillon led the team in carries. I don't see why that's going to reverse. If anything, I think it's going to become more. I think AJ Dillon's going to have more carries and Aaron Jones less. I do have Aaron Jones higher just because I feel like it's PPR game. So AJ Dillon is not used that much in the receiving game compared to Aaron Jones, but I have them not that far apart. And honestly, looking at my rankings, I probably have AJ Dillon too low. I think in redraft.
I don't disagree with anything you've said, Tyler, but I think that we're forgetting that Aaron Jones has produced 3 years in a row as an RB1 split in the backfield. He's never had more than the 60% opportunity share. He's shared with Jamal Williams. He's now sharing with AJ Dillon. Even if AJ Dillon's going to lead the Packers in carries, I still think Aaron Jones can produce as a top 12 running back this year. And I think that, we're going to see a very different Packers offense. We're going to see a very different Packers team with the new receiving weapons, with the way that offense works. And I think that whilst the hate is somewhat justified on Aaron Jones, and I think he deserves to see a drop in terms of his dynasty value over the last 6 months, I think the hate has gone too far. And I think that people are obsessing about this contract, saying, well, the Packers are definitely going to cut him at the end of this year. But everybody seems to forget that about plenty of other running backs. You know, Aaron Jones, okay, they save 11 million by cutting him. But Dalvin Cook, the Vikings save, I think it's 9 million by cutting him next year. And nobody seems to mention that or forget about that. And I think there's a whole plethora of running backs. You know, Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler can all be cut and save money. The only older running backs that have basically got guaranteed 2 years left in them is Alvin Kamara and Nick Chubb. All of the rest of them.
McCaffrey.
I think McCaffrey can be cut off this year, I believe.
No, because I think that McCaffrey has something in his contract that adds additional guaranteed money coming. Yeah, so I don't think, because his extension, McCaffrey was a 2017 first-round pick. So
McCaffrey's got an out after 2023 where the Panthers could save money.
Yeah, they save 1 million. So and they so he really has 2 years, but they take 18 million in dead. But yeah, it's really, there are not many. It really is just some of the ones you listed. Kamara and McCaffrey are the big ones with big money left.
Chubb, that's it.
Chubb, yeah. So Chubb's contract's not quite as big, but yeah.
Everybody's slagging off Aaron Jones saying he's going to get cut, but I wouldn't be shocked if plenty of those other high-value running backs. And I think that people are happy keeping Dalvin Cook and players like that up that high. But I mean, I'd rather Aaron Jones than Dalvin Cook in redraft this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you missed my discussion yesterday where I was like, Dalvin Cook is elite, and Aaron Jones. It was actually Cook and Mixon that I was talking about, where I was like, Dalvin Cook is elite and Joe Mixon is not. And if you switch them and put Dalvin Cook in Cincinnati, I would have Dalvin Cook in redraft at 2. And I think Dalvin Cook is elite. And I've never thought that Aaron Jones is elite. Aaron Jones is efficient, but Dalvin Cook is efficient and a workhorse.
We'll agree to disagree on this one, Tyler. I'm not sure where we're going to
Aaron Jones. I used to be a big Aaron Jones fan. Like, I was a big Aaron Jones fan back in the day, like in 2017, 2018, when it was Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. I was begging the Packers to see it. Like, you have this superior player and you're giving J Swag Daddy, who, by the way, great human being. Jamal Williams is like one of my favorite human beings in the NFL. But Aaron Jones is a way better running back. So it's not like I hated Aaron Jones. It's just he's 27 already. Like, I'm good.
So let's move on. We've got Clyde Edwards-Hilaire as my second player that we're going to be talking about now. I have a feeling, hearing that, this is going to be another slate fest from Tyler.
This is much worse. This is much worse. But he has a nickname.
So CEH, he's currently going at RB28. And to me, personally, I feel that he's going to outperform that ADP. He doesn't really have much competition in the backfield. I mean, it's Ronald Jones as the backup there and then basically nothing else. The past 2 seasons, I think the thing with Clyde Edwards-Hilaire is he's getting slated, and I think it's going too far based on the expectations the Dynasty community had of him going into his rookie season. Oh, he's with the Chiefs, he's with Patrick Mahomes, he's ultimately going to be the best running back in the league forever. And that might be a slight exaggeration, but considering people are taking him as the 101 in rookie drafts over some of the best prospects QB-wise that we've seen for a while, I think that says everything you need to know about what people thought about Clyde Edwards-Hilaire going into the rookie drafts. Fast forward 2 years, he's completely the opposite. He is basically forgotten about in ADP. I feel like if you're looking for an RB2, you can pass on getting one of the RBs in the dead zone and potentially get an RB2 later in the draft, which is Clyde Edwards-Hilaire, because I feel like RB2 numbers is his floor if he plays a full season. Now I'm going to hand it over to Tyler and let him go into this one a little bit more.
I think the people drafting ADP started listening to me because my Clyde Edwards-Hilaire ranking has not changed. But we've gotten to a point where somehow Clyde Edwards-Hilaire is actually lower in ADP than he is in my rankings. So people have, I think people have listened. But yeah, I have Clyde Edwards-Hilaire in Dynasty at running back 27. So actually higher than ADP somehow. Uh, and in redraft, I have him at running back 29. So not great. Yeah, I don't like him at all. But I've kind of stopped. I've stopped bashing him to the same degree because his ADP is just so low that there's no point in bashing him anymore. Like, what is he, 88th overall, running back 28? At that point, like, you can draft him. I don't like, there was a point at this offseason, I believe, where he was still top 20. And I was like, that's insane. He's done nothing. He sucks. He does suck, but he can suck. And you can still draft him at running back 28. So you don't hear me bash on Clyde Hilaire as much as you do Aaron Jones or, the next player we're going to come to. That one, I'm not done. That one I've never been done. But Clyde Hilaire at this point, it's like people have already listened. Or I don't know if they're listening to me, but they're listening to somebody because his ADP is so low that I no longer feel the need to, people want to hear me say it. They want to hear me say Clyde Edwards failure or call him failure or whatever. That for some reason they like hearing me say it. But, in terms of his ADP, like, people have adjusted, and I'm proud of the Dynasty community for getting him in the right place. So, whatever, draft him at that price. I no longer care.
I think at the price he's going at, he's worth a lottery ticket, isn't it? Is that, there's probably maybe a 10-20% chance that he suddenly breaks out and has this incredible receiving game. I think Ronald Jones is going to take some of the, the rushing work and some of that short yardage work away from him. But maybe we finally see what we hoped in that it's that James White, Duke Johnson from 2017, that type of role where he is, able to command 6, 7, 8 carries, targets a game to complement kind of 5, 6 carries. And he becomes a great buy because of that receiving work. Do I think that's going to happen? No. Do I think it could? Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, he's my running back 27.
Just same as me.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Where he's priced, I'm fine with, but he's not a guy that I'm actively going out to buy, should we say.
Like, if you look at his ADP graph in December December 2021, which is probably when I started bashing on him, his ADP was 38 overall. At that price, that was insane. He'd been terrible. And for some reason, he was 38 overall. I had him in the 60s or 70s. But then, in January, he fell to 60, then 68, then 74, a couple months of 74, and now 87. So he's continuously fallen since December. People, I think, have realized that he's not what they thought he was. And now, to a degree, they've finally gotten to the right place. So, it happens. I always say I don't hate players. I hate values. We will get to a player that is an exception. That player I just don't like. I don't think that player is good.
I feel like we're running out of time, Tyler, and I want to get to that player. So let's skip over the next couple reasonably quick.
Yeah, we can skip
get
mine.
to your guy. Go on. Your third player, Tyler. Let's hear it.
Yeah, it's a Tyrion Davis-Price, who I mentioned earlier. It's just simply for no other reason that he was drafted in the 3rd round of the NFL draft to the 49ers, and some people have just dismissed him, and because they didn't like him pre-draft. And I just won't do that because he has 3rd round draft capital. For running back, that usually means you get a chance. Now, Trey Sermon exists. He didn't get a chance. So it also shows me that they don't like Trey Sermon, so they're willing to spend another 3rd round pick on a running back. For me, it has nothing to do with Tyrion Davis-Price as a player. I didn't like him pre-draft. I don't like him now, but at his cost, I just don't see any reason not to draft him. I saw him go in the late 3rd in rookie drafts. I don't understand why. That just makes no sense based on his draft capital. So being a running back, so I would not do that. I would go definitely earlier, and it's just that simple.
So in Dynasty startup drafts, where do you have him?
Yeah, so he's 148 overall in DLF ADP. I have him almost about 2 rounds higher. I'm 123 in that 1 QB format. So yeah, 25 picks higher. And I have him, running back 42. So it's not that high. But compared to his ADP, I have him good 2 rounds higher. I just wanted to mention him because he's just such an easy player that his ADP just makes no sense to me. So
yeah, he's my running back 5 in terms of rookie drafts. I think
that's higher than me.
Yeah, I think I think there was four good rookie running backs, and I think he's the lottery ticket that I'd feel most confident about after that. So there's a big tier back after those top 4, but I think he's a lottery ticket that could easily cash, I think. So yeah, happy to do that. So skip quickly over my third player then, because I'm hoping that it's Liam's third player that you hate on. So
yes.
My third guy is a guy that I've been high on since pre-draft, Chris Allarvey. I think people are hating on him, and I can't get why, other than the fact that he was a senior when he came into the NFL. I think he's landed in a dream spot. We've got the yearly talk of Michael Thomas not being 100% fit. If you're scared of Jarvis Landry at this point in his career, taking targets away from a player, I'm not sure what to tell you. I think you're probably scared a little bit too much. I think that Olave's been an elite prospect. I think he's still an elite prospect, and I think he's in a fantastic situation. I don't think he'll ever be a truly elite Dynasty wide receiver 1. I don't think he's got that top 12 ceiling, but I think in terms of a safe floor play, I think he's going to be a guy that's, a back end, kind of mid to high end wide receiver 2 for the next 5 to 6 years. I think he's just going to be a nice, steady, stable performer, and at the price he's going, I think he's massively undervalued.
Didn't you write the article on him for DLF?
I did.
Yeah, so people should go read that at dynastyleaguefootball.com. They should go read Rich's article about Chris Olave if you want however many words, 1,000 to 1,500 words on Chris Olave, the whole details about that. You should go read the article.
Well, there you go. You plugged it away perfectly for me, Tyler. Right, no Liam. I feel like this whole show has been building to this point.
Oh, yes.
Let's hear you first of all give a reason why Juju is massively undervalued, and then we can throw across to Tyler.
Okay, so Tyler, I am going to say all this with a massive smirk on my face because I know what is going to happen when I stop talking. So Juju, let's start off with his past production. He has shown flashes of being the top 10 wide receiver in scoring that you want to see from a guy. Now, he's had some issues in the past few years. He's had injuries. He went back to Pittsburgh last year and got injured yet again. So he has had the issues that you're probably seeing baked into his ADP right now, in my opinion, at least. But out of his 3 seasons where he's played more than 14 games or 14 or more games, he has finished as a top 24 wide receiver. Now, to me, if a wide receiver has 3 top 24 years in his first 5, that is a guy that I kind of expect to produce yet again that type of production. Now, let's move on to his age. He's 25 years old and he's already played 5 seasons. A lot of people, I think this is kind of like a Brandon Cooks kind of phenomenon where he's played so many seasons that people forget his age. He's 25 years old. If I told you that another wide receiver who was 25 years old has 3 top 20 production years and is currently being drafted at the wide receiver 39, I don't think anyone would stop you from drafting him there and bringing him way up in ADP. But because of Juju Smith-Schuster, I think that is the whole phenomenon around his age. And I think that the whole TikTok scene that people kind of bring into fantasy, which I have no idea why, I think that's kind of affecting his ADP. And then to bring in another thing, he's just gone to the best quarterback in the league in most circles. Maybe not the most winningest because that is Tom Brady. Everyone knows that. But talent-wise, a lot of people have this guy as the most talented quarterback in the league, and that's Patrick Mahomes. So he's just gone to one of the best offenses in the league. There is no Tyreek Hill, so there is a wide-open wide receiver room. Yes, they drafted Sky Moore. They have signed MVS, and they still have Mecole Hardman, but we don't know what Sky Moore is going to be. I think that Sky Moore is going to be great in that offense, but I don't think it's going to affect Juju as much as people think. MVS is going to be a deep ball guy, and I hope that because of Packer fandom, I hope that they get him more involved than just being the deep threat. They did pay him well, but I don't know whether that's going to be true. And Mecole Hardman hasn't really shown much to anything, and The other thing about Juju is the Chiefs tried to sign him last year and he chose to go back to the Steelers. Now, we have no idea what his season would have been like last year had he have signed with the Chiefs. But it shows that in 2 seasons in a row, the Chiefs have tried to sign this guy. They obviously have some sort of role for him. They want him to play. He's going to be a big focal point of that offense, especially now Tyreek's not there. So a 25-year-old receiver, 3 top 20 production years, and has a role with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I don't understand why he's being taken as the wide receiver 39. It is basically an afterthought. He's going around where you're taking your 4th flex spot in wide receiver terms, at least. Tyler, go for it. Release.
You want to know why he's being taken there? Because he sucks. He sucks. He's terrible. Never open. Never open. You go for the last 3 years. Open? Is he ever open? Never open. The whole route tree, it's all red. Never open. He can't win on any route. All he does is just run, and then he's not open, and then he sometimes makes a contested catch. All over his career, yards per target going down every year. Down. Worse and worse and worse every year. And then, you say these 3 top 20 years, but, I mean, last year, nothing, essentially. He gave you nothing. And then 2019 was another disaster.
Played 5 games last year.
Yeah, but 2019, he played 12 games. He didn't do anything in those. He didn't do anything in the games he did play. That was the thing. He played 12 games, and he was not good. He wasn't good. And then 2020, you would say, well, I mean, he was relatively productive, but he did score a career-high 9 touchdowns on only, 97 receptions. I don't know if that's going to be his game. He's not particularly good at anything, let alone being a red zone threat. So I don't know. He's just bad. Like, that's the problem. He is not good anymore. He was good. I don't know what happened. That's actually the big mystery to me, is what happened to Juju Smith-Schuster from 2017 and 2018. That guy's gone. He's never come back. In 2019, 2020, and 2021, that player has never existed. He's been bad. The only reason that he produced in 2020 was because he was force-fed massive volume that he really didn't add anything to. He did nothing with it. He just caught the balls because Big Ben forced him the ball. And that's fine, but I just don't think he's very good. And I think that really, to me, at this point, Juju Smith-Schuster is Tyler Boyd with a fancy name. That's all he is. He's Tyler Boyd with a different name. If he were named Tyler Boyd, no one would draft him. But the only reason that anyone's drafting him was because he had one hyper-productive season 4 years ago. If that didn't happen and it was 4 years ago, I don't think anyone would care about Juju Smith-Schuster. If you just watched the last 3 years of Juju Smith-Schuster, there's nothing there to like. Nothing. So I don't understand why people are in on him. Nobody wanted him in free agency. It took a long time for him to sign. The Chiefs then went and paid Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I believe, triple or quadruple the guaranteed money. And I just don't feel like Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be anything special. In redraft, I have him ranked as wide receiver 34. So, I mean, whatever. Like, he's not going to not produce anything. He's going to get some targets, but his ceiling is, I think 2020 is his best case scenario. I think that's his ceiling. If everything comes together, he could have a season like he had in 2020 where he catches a larger than expected number of touchdowns on a decent volume, does nothing extra with it, and finishes as what was he that year? Wide receiver 20 or 21. I think that's the best case scenario. More likely is what I had him ranked as wide receiver 34 or so. And I'm just I don't want to take players where I feel like the ceiling is wide receiver 20. That's just doesn't excite me. So I'm pretty out on
even at wide receiver 40, I would take the 20 spot positional jump and sell him for that.
But that's his best case scenario. I think that wide receiver 34, I have him, is more likely. I think that that's more like what it's going to be. And I only think it's going to get worse. I think the only reason I have him ranked as wide receiver 34 is because I think that Sky Moore is not going to be ready to be the number one wide receiver in this offense week one. So I think that Juju Smith-Schuster is going to have some productive games over the first half of the season. But when you look at the whole season, I think that it's not going to be as good. And then you know what I say, what matters more for someone's dynasty value next year? What happens at the beginning or what happens at the end is what happens at the end. And if Juju Smith-Schuster sucks over the last half of the season, then he's not going to even hold his current value, let alone go up in value. So I'll take a pass on a player that I just think, again, it is a great mystery to me. I really don't know which injury it was, what happened, why he became bad, but he's been bad. So I don't think that 2018 Juju exists anymore. So yeah.
Can I jump in and say, I think I'm probably somewhere in between the two. I agree with some of what Tyler says, but I really disagree with some of what Tyler says. In that you hit on a fantastic point in that Juju Smith-Schuster isn't a good route runner. Okay. He has consistently over the last 5 years performed poorly in reception perception, as you hinted at. He is, you look at last year, he was 61.2% in terms of my single number route running that I put together. That was 7th worst amongst all wide receivers that are charted. In 2020, he was 59.3%, which the only players worse were Henry Ruggs, T.Y. Hilton, and Jalen Reagor. So I don't think he's a very good route runner. However, I think that in the right offense and schemed correctly, he is a player that can do fantastic things in the short to intermediate routes. I think he has been signed by the Chiefs because he is a bigger bodied slot receiver. He is that traditional prototypical power slot. This is a guy that I want to say is like 6'2", 215, 220. He is a fantastic run blocker. And that is part of the reason that the Chiefs have brought him in. The Chiefs have brought him in because they want this offense is going to be more run heavy than anyone is willing to admit. They've brought in MVS and they've brought in Juju Smith-Schuster, who are two of the best run blocking wide receivers in the NFL. Sky Moore is not going to play out the slot for the Chiefs. He is undersized, but he is going to line up outside. He's going to be used like the Jets used Elijah Moore last year. They are going to have Juju Smith-Schuster in that power slot role, MVS taken off the top, and I truly believe that Juju Smith-Schuster is going to have a role carved out in the offense. Now, I think the biggest concern for me, again, something you hint on, Tyler, is this contract situation. I don't know if Juju is just doesn't care about money. And, the reports were that he turned down a lot more money from the Ravens and the Chiefs last year to go back to the Steelers. But the fact he only signed for $2.8 million, that's ridiculous. This is a guy that should have been getting $8 to $10 million on the free agent market easily. The fact he's signing for 2.8, and as you said, a quarter of what MVS signed for, I can't get my head around. I'm hoping that he's chosen the best situation for him because he's thinking he's going to get a massive payday next year. Maybe, who knows? Maybe he just doesn't like money. But
let's not forget on the MVS point that MVS signed for 3 years, not one. And therefore his AAV in terms of that is only half
10.
of
It's 10.
It's 3 years, 30 mil. Isn't it?
In terms of guaranteed money, though, that is not as much as you think. In terms of guaranteed at signing, that is only 8 mil. I believe it's 15 mil guaranteed.
Yeah, but I mean, if you normally when you're signing a 1 year deal, you're signing for more money. And DJ Chark signed a 1 year $10 million deal. Give me Juju Schuster over DJ Chark every day of the week, and
that is
DJ
odd
Chark's
to me because I think that DJ Chark has really shown outside of 10 games nothing at all.
Exactly.
So
I think that I think that Juju. I think some people overhype him. And I think that I get what Tyler's saying. People talk about this was a guy that was the Dynasty wide receiver 1 at one point in his career. And I'm not sure it was ever there. But I think that he is a bigger bodied power slot that relies on the scheme to get open. And who is the most creative offensive mind when it comes to getting wide receivers in space and open? You've got to throw Andy Reid in that mix. And I truly believe that Andy Reid has gone out and got Juju for a reason. And I think that he's probably going to outproduce his ADP. I think that he is a decent 1 year buy. I don't know about long term because I don't know if the Chiefs are going to sign him beyond this year unless he signs another ridiculously cheap contract again. So yeah, I guess I'm probably not as high as you, Liam, but I'm certainly not out on him like you are, Tyler.
So let's bring this show to an end because we have run about 5 minutes over. But Tyler, remind the lovely listeners where they can find you.
Along with Rich, you can find all my writing at DLF. And then you can find me on Twitter. It's right there at Tyler FF Creator. And then my YouTube is Tyler Fantasy Creator. And then you can find me at SDLF, which is on the DLF YouTube. Then, my Patreon is in the pinned link on my Twitter. So you can find that there.
Perfect. And we believe you have a Dynasty tip for us before we sign off.
I do. So my biggest Dynasty tip is actually very simple. Check your league throughout the year. Check your league. You never know when somebody's going to be dropped. You don't want to be the person where someone drops someone good and you miss them. You don't want to be the person where someone posted, I'm trading this player away in the chat. You don't want to be the person who misses out on that opportunity. Sometimes it's very simple. Just checking in your league can give you a huge advantage. To some degree, Dynasty is the more work you put in, the better team you're going to have, just like kind of anything else in life to a degree. So yeah, just make sure you're checking your league year round. I always say Dynasty is a year round game, and it is. News happens all year. Changes happen all year. Managers check in all year. So just make sure to do that. Very simple tip.
I love that. As I said, that there is no talent required to put effort in.
And as DLF says, there's no off season. So I agree with that.
True. And active leagues are the best. So if you can make it more active yourself, then that is everything you need in a league. Anyway, guys, that is the end of the show. And until next week, see you later. Bye-bye, guys.